Hi, it's Gus here. This is going to be a review of X-Men God Loves, Man Kills by Chris Claremont and, what's his name, Brent Anderson, who's the artist. Obviously Chris Claremont's the writer. It's a fairly well-known classic comic. I'm sorry about the glare. Obviously I'll eventually figure that out. It's just the first page that's, well, the cover, which is glary because of the light I've got above me. This book is the inspiration, I think, for X2, the second X-Men film. Obviously they made some various changes from this original book form. So it starts with a sort of a storyline of these two kids running away from these mutant killers. It plays on kind of, I suppose, topics of, you could say, racism and just what the usual X-Men kind of topics of, you know, bigotry, racism. And the art's great. It starts out a little slow. I have to say it took a while to get into it. I'm going to cut out a few pages here and there so you don't see, it doesn't ruin the book for you. Yeah, so basically it just follows a similar storyline to the X2. The X-Men are kind of doing their own thing. There's this guy, radical fella. Here, it's in the film, he's like a radical kind of, is it politician or military guy? Here he's more of a fundamentalist Christian type. Yeah, it follows similar outline. The X-team is at the mansion or whatever, chilling out, doing their own thing, and this bad guy's up to no good with his cronies. Obviously wants to end all mutants, kill all the mutants, and obviously we have Magneto on the opposite, kind of wants to kill all the humans, or things to that effect. So yeah, it just follows a similar story. Obviously it's 80s though, so we've got all these sort of more cool garishy costumes and such. You see Shadow Cut there. Panic Room's always nice to have a little panic room scene in the X-Men. Xavier gets captured, similar to the scene obviously in the film where he's actually at Magneto's prison. What's cool about the films is I feel like the film refines the story. And this is sort of like a part 2 of what I was doing earlier with my kind of X-Men franchise review. In the film, they kind of have that scene where he's talking to Magneto in the prison. They kind of set up Magneto's views on the subject, Magneto's views on Stryker and all that sort of thing. His relation to, obviously, Xavier, and also deliver that scene where Xavier gets caught and, gets carted off to the kind of underground lair of, or the evil lair of William Stryker. So here it's just like they're just on a sort of, as far as I can remember, just driving. It's not as location based. In the film they would cover more in each shot, so the capture scene of Xavier was also connected to Xavier kind of talking about these issues to Magneto. It was addressing Magneto's views on the subject. Yeah, it was a good shot scene in the film, one of my favourites, I think, because it dealt with Xavier, Magneto and Stryker all in the exact same scene. What's interesting is that obviously in this book they play on, there's this female henchman or henchwoman of the main villain Stryker here, and she's later revealed to be a mutant. Spoilers, she's revealed to be a mutant. But in the film, obviously, she was Lady Deathstrike, which is essentially the female version of Wolverine. Oh, I suppose that and X2. Yeah, it was kind of interesting how they kind of refined things a little bit more for the film, and she also played off of Wolverine very well in the film, because she was like the female version of what he could have been had he stayed with Stryker. So the film is a bit more leaner, but then obviously you could call this like a first draft. They're just refining what could be for the film. I mean, obviously maybe I shouldn't say that because it's such a classic comic. A lot of comicers might kill me for saying that, but we've got some fun shenanigans going on here. Typical kind of X-Men stuff. This is the part which I get really into, which I was saddened that they didn't have more of this. They're using their powers and they kind of speak. They talk about what they're going to do before they do it, and scenes like this where like Nightcrawler would go on the roof, and obviously what he should do is he should go in the car to capture the person, but you actually have to have this whole scene, and it isn't till about here that he goes, oh, I am going to go in the car and transport this person, and it's like it takes him. I mean, this scene should really be here, but instead we have to go through all of this. Anyway, it's what's kind of fun about comics, I suppose. It's like kid logic, because they can slow things down a bit, make people a bit simpler. the baddies get reduced to their underpants, which is always a bit of fun. Now there was, I'll just sort of wrap it up fairly quickly. I mean, you can see they were kind of playing on Xavier's being kind of going, was it ensorcelled by Stryker to attack all the mutants, kill all the X-Men using his Cerebro version of Cerebro that he's made. This plays on religious themes more than in the film, which was more kind of military, which I thought worked stronger because they could play upon Wolverine's character more, because Wolverine was like a weapon, obviously Weapon X, whereas this is religious themes. But what the shame about the comic is that they talk about it in the making of, they talk about how, what Chris Claremont talks about. It's interesting, obviously, the characters Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler are more religious types, obviously. I know at least Nightcrawler's Catholic, so it was a shame that they couldn't play on, like, I wanted to hear what Nightcrawler's thoughts on William Stryker were and such, and instead it was just at the end, well, I'll talk about that later, but at the end it was just more like, we're a team and you're really bad, and he's like, obviously he's like a sociopathic monster, but it's like, it would have been fun to see Nightcrawler take on William Stryker, as opposed to, since William Stryker here is depicted as a more religious character than Kitty Pryde, he was just sort of saying, you're bad, I mean, like, obviously, and you've got bad ideas. It's like, well, obviously. Here we have a setup, obviously, this character, William Stryker's backstory, he's just like a killer, like, he's just like kills his family because his kid was a mutant or whatever, and then they kind of throw away, like, he was, just he was like, he was a war hero, but he, they looked the other way when he was drinking and getting into fights and stuff, and I don't know, it seemed like a missed opportunity. They could play more on this kind of character of Stryker and what do you call it, shine it against Nightcrawler's story, especially. Nightcrawler, I think, could have really, and I'd say even should have maybe been Nightcrawler, and maybe Kitty, if Kitty has sort of religious views to counter pose for this. What I loved about the film is it played on the military themes and the good military, bad military, and you can see that with obviously Stryker versus Wolverine. So that worked really well in the film. There was these little counterpoints. You could see that in the chess game Charles and Magneto were playing. There's that kind of counter battles, which is pretty cool. Somewhat lacking here, but no, it's still a fun comic. This is probably one of my favourite bits of the comic, and it reminds me of the old 60s comics with Kirby and Stan Lee. Classic kind of original X-Men stuff, where you'd have the characters, they're gonna kill the goodies. You've got Kitty Pryde and she's in the van, the baddies are gonna kill her, and it's the most ridiculous thing because they stick this kind of muty thing on the van because they plan to kill her in there, and it's their van, so I don't know why they want to destroy their own van, but alright. And they shoot their own van, like, to buggery, look at that, gone, and then they open up the trunk, and she's obviously not there because she can phase through things. They literally say up here, she's probably conscious now, so she'll feel it. Oh yeah, wouldn't that be great if she feels getting shot and killed? And then it's like, oh yeah, she phases through things, that's her superpower. And it's like, it's kind of charming in a way, actually. I quite miss that from some of the more modern superhero films, is this kind of almost kid logic, fun stuff where kind of kids will be a little bit slow to pick up on that, and they'll have, oh no, she's dead, and not really, whereas the film might be too clever about it, too kind of, the audience will already know that. I don't know, I mean, I guess that's just the charm of this. It just brings back nostalgia of that time, whereas I suppose maybe films are a different medium, you want a serious film to be more realistic. But I thought that was great because it's just like, God, these characters are so stupid, and also they shot their own car, so it was just like, what? Kitty Pryde's getting she bumps into these guys to hopes they're gonna protect her from the baddies, William Stryker's team, and like apparently they're supposed to be, get a glare off, they're supposed to be thugs, but like, I don't know, where I live in England, they don't look like this. These look like the village people. I wouldn't get too worried if the village people showed up in the dark alley. That's not something, if I was a Kitty Pryde girl, I wouldn't be too worried about that, to be honest. This piece was quite fun, because this piece actually reminded me of Buster Keaton, where they were all in this elevator, and the heroes managed to take, I I'm not sure they actually managed to take, but at least Magneto manages to move the elevator which carries the supposed dead bodies of Storm and Cyclops through the roof and takes them away. No, that was a bit of fun. Obviously the usual comic kind of stuff where it's like they're not really dead, you know, they're still alive. It's like the constant fake out deaths which you get, which we're kind of almost used to now, I suppose. And it carries on. Obviously the ending scene here takes place in an auditorium. I believe Madison Square Garden. It deals with obviously the showdown between Stryker and Magneto in a different way than the film does. Obviously kill all the mutants, all of them. There you go. And it plays out similar way to the film. Somewhat. Obviously there's differences and stuff. He kills her henchmen, and yeah, no, it's all around sort of fun comic. It's not as good as the film. It's not as finessed as the film. They had a few really interesting points, which obviously is that you got with the Stryker character being more of a religious fundamentalist type. You had some really exciting opportunities to play on Nightcrawler and his connection to Nightcrawler and other people who were more kind of religious in the X-Men team, and they didn't really go down there. There's this really funny shot. This one here makes me laugh because really these two should be like having an argument for me at the end of this story, since they're kind of two opposite points almost. It's a shame that didn't play it, as I said earlier, play that out. But here it's like, human, you dare call that thing human? And Nightcrawler's just standing there like a limp biscuit, like somewhat offended, but nonplussed all the same. It just seemed a little silly, but it is one of the comics where they're figuring out their place and how to tell a story, and obviously people, you know, decades later can refine the story. But yeah, for the comic, I thought is a review, fun, some really fun points, some really great scenes with Kitty Pryde kind of phasing through things to escape the baddies at the X mansion, which you actually saw in the film as well. Similar kind of scenes where she was running through her bed and then along the corridor. But yeah, it was a shame that they didn't play off they wanted to go into the religious themes. They kept on talking religious stuff, but they didn't play off of the other religious characters, which would have been kind of a fun dynamic, you know. Yeah, all around, good book. Bit heavy for me. I'd like a little light comic at some point. I've just been finishing off Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller and Kingdom Come. And yeah, they're just very heavy comics. This is a heavy one as well. I typed in best comics on, top 10 comics on online, and it's come up with all these really, really intense ones. And I was just looking for some really top quality, fun comics. So yeah, if any of you comic people out there have just really fun comics that like really classic and really fun, I'd be happy to go for it. These are just a bit too intense for me, a bit heavy. Kingdom Come especially, pretty intense. Like, you can only read a couple of pages a night because it's like, phew, it's a lot to think about, you know what I mean? Yeah, okay, thanks for watching, and if you like this video, obviously like the video and subscribe. Take it easy.